Deep dives and blue skies. Welcome back to Talking Blue with Nick, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you can find. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Talking Blue, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you can find. I'm your host, Nick. You are listening to episode 63 of Talking Blue. Today, it is a very special day because we are talking about the upcoming wild card round between your Los Angeles Dodgers and the Cincinnati Reds. That's right. The Dodgers are in the wild card round. They'll be taking on the Reds at home. At the time of this recording, it is Monday, September 29th, so the game is tomorrow, September 30th. At the time, there is still a lot up in the air with the postseason roster, who's going to be on there, who should be on there. We don't know yet. That stuff usually gets announced like 4 or 5 hours before game time. Now, when it comes to who is pitching and all that, we're going to get into all that stuff. So, as always, you can get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on all social media at Talkin' Blue Pod. I'm going to try to make a couple TikToks so you can follow us on there. Follow myself at Talkin' Blue Nick on X. A lot of tweets, a lot of stuff that I've been posting, breakdowns, Clayton Kershaw, Will Smith, Mookie Betts defense, Andy Pages. I'm going to do a bunch more, Yoshinobu Yamamoto season. I'm going to break down, just going to give a little summary and a little bit of stats of how guys played, their season, all that kind of stuff. So if you like that stuff, you can go and check my X at Talkin' Blue Nick and on Reddit at competitive-week8715. I know it's a weird name, but there's a bunch of Talkin' Blue stuff on there. You can't miss it. Sometimes I like to post stuff on there to get people talking. If you're a regular on this podcast, you know that I do preview series every once in a while. So it's going to be a little bit of that today. Not necessarily the deepest version. I talked about the Reds about a month ago, so I'm not necessarily going to do a crazy preview, but I am going to talk to you about the Reds, what makes them good, what they're not good at. I'm going to talk about the history between these teams this year, when the Dodgers played them in late July and then about a month ago in late August, how a couple of the guys match up, pitching matchups, just all that stuff. I'm going to talk about postseason baseball, what to expect, all that stuff. Quickly, before I get into any Reds-Dodgers stuff, postseason baseball. First of all, it's crazy that postseason baseball is already here. It doesn't even feel like it was that long ago that we were celebrating a Dodgers World Series. Here we are a year later. The season just goes by so fast sometimes, man. But here we are, obviously unfamiliar territory for Dodger fans, especially since the new postseason format came about in 2022. First time that we will be watching the Dodgers in the wild card round. First time we'll be watching them in a shortened series. Now, I guess it's technically not super unfamiliar territory. 2021, the Dodgers did play in the wild card game. Worse, because it's just one game for the rest of your season. This time, wild card round. So it's obviously a best of 2 out of 3. So you got to win 2 games. Historically, teams that win the first game go on to win the series. I believe that every team that has won game 1 has won the series. And actually, most of the time, it's very rare that the series even go 3 games. I think, from what I can remember, in 2022, when the Mets lost to the Padres, they didn't win game 1, but they did win game 2 to force a game 3, but then they lost. And then last year in 2024, the Brewers and Mets, I believe that the Mets won game 1, and then the Brewers forced game 2, and then the Mets ended up winning. So I don't think there's been a series where the team that has lost game 1 has come back and won the series. So obviously, game 1 is massive. Like I said, I'll get into the matchups in a sec. Postseason time, it's crazy. There's so much going on. It's really exciting, but it's also really nerve-wracking. And depending what kind of fan you are, if you're someone like myself, it's almost like more nerve-wracking than it is exciting. At any second, you can get your heart broken. At any second, you could have one of the coolest memories. I mean, in my existence of watching the Dodgers, I'm only 25 years old, and I've watched so many postseason games. And I can just go down the Rolodex of so many moments that I remember watching live. I won't go through all of them, but, I remember Max Muncy's walk-off home run in 2018. I remember Clayton Kershaw giving up the lead to the Nationals in 2019. Those are two mix of emotions. But Cody Bellinger in 2020 hitting that big home run. Chris Taylor, that was a big one, hitting that walk-off home run. The 2 years in 2022 and 2023 where they were lifeless and they got eliminated in the first round, or I guess the second round. And then last year I can remember watching, all the big moments, Freddie Freeman's walk-off grand slam. So mix of emotions, fun times, scary times. That is the best way I could sum up the postseason. If you're new to this, the best thing I could tell you is to expect to have fun moments and to have your heart broken. It's a mixed emotion in the postseason. You never know what's going to happen. The Dodgers are technically playing the worst playoff team. The Reds have the least amount of wins. And that doesn't mean squat, honestly. The Dodgers have lost to teams in the past where you would look at the record and you would say, how did they lose to that team? And then they've also beaten other teams that were a little better than them. So you never really know. Baseball is the hardest sport to predict. It seems like every sport has their own saying. Hey, anything could happen in football, anything could happen in basketball. Is like most true in baseball. Like anything could happen. And especially it feels like the last few years in the postseason where there's been a little bit less of these monster teams. Usually it's the Dodgers. It seems like the last few years there's been more and more like everyone is kind of very similar records. Nobody's really like standing out in terms of record, and it's really like it could just be anyone's year. Last year the Dodgers won the World Series. They had the best record. They were the best team. I think they had 98 wins, but there was a bunch of other teams that had 93, 94, 95. This year very similar. Dodgers have 93 wins, third best in the NL, I think fifth best overall. The Phillies have 95 wins. They could win the World Series. Brewers, I think 97. Yankees and Blue Jays 94, I think. So everyone's jumbled together. It's really unpredictable. Baseball is the most unpredictable sport. So, Dodgers and the Reds. I'm going to talk to you guys about the Reds. The Reds are a pretty good team. Like I said, of all the postseason teams, they probably are the least scary, if I'm being honest. But I know in my life there is really no reason to take somebody for granted. I know the Dodgers won't. They've learned many times, like I said, that anyone can beat you. It doesn't matter how good or how not good they are. So the Cincinnati Reds, good team, really young team. Obviously, Terry Francona, this is his first year that he's managing the Reds. No surprise that they're in the playoffs. That's the kind of thing that he does. Young team, electric players, but don't necessarily have anyone in their lineup that has some crazy numbers. Mostly are built off their starting pitching. So let me get into what the Reds are good at. Cincinnati Reds finished 83-79, third place in the NL Central. They finished 19th in batting average, 16th in on-base percentage, 21st in slugging percentage, and 21st in home runs. That is in all of Major League Baseball. They were 11th in walk percentage, but they also had the 8th highest K percentage. Like I said, all of those are Major League Baseball rankings, not just the NL. So, again, quick takeaways. They're not a great offensive team. Like I said, a middle of the pack, even towards the lower end of a lot of those offensive categories. They do walk a little bit. Of course, old friend Gavin Lux, that is one of his good traits. I believe Spencer Steer, who plays first base for them, also has some pretty good walk numbers, and a couple other guys. But then they obviously strike out. Ellie De La Cruz is usually a guy who strikes out a lot. They have other guys like Will Benson. He punches out a lot. And there are other guys that I'll get into. On the pitching side, this is what makes them good. The Reds are 12th in team ERA overall, 9th in starting pitching ERA, and then 14th in bullpen ERA. So very solid all around, but really it's the starting pitching. And it's kind of funny, like I was thinking about their pitchers. They obviously have Hunter Green, who has the highest ceiling of all of them and one of the higher ceilings in the game. Who knows how high his ceiling is. If he's healthy, he's one of the 10 best pitchers in the game. Then they also have two lefties, Nick Lodolo and Andrew Abbott, who are really, really good pitchers as well. And then I just remembered they have Chase Burns, one of the top prospects coming into this year, top draft pick in 2024. He's moved to the pen, throws super hard, and they have other guys there. So they kind of have a bright future, especially with the starting rotation. And it's here they are, postseason 2025. So not the scariest offensive team, but they do have some scary guys in the rotation. Now, the best way to counter that for the Dodgers and to kind of counter, any possible fears of the Dodgers getting shut down by their pitching is this year in 2025, the Dodgers played really well against the Reds and against a couple of guys they're probably going to see in this series and against the Reds overall. So in 2025, the Dodgers went 5-1 in the regular season versus the Reds. They outscored the Reds 30-15. So 30 runs is what the Dodgers scored, 15 is what the Reds scored. So obviously it was a 6-game series. They played them in late July. This was right before the trade deadline in Cincinnati. And then they played them almost exactly a month ago at the very end of August. So they won 2 out of 3 in July and swept them in August. They beat Chase Burns on the first game in July. They won that game 5-2. Chase Burns, like I said, was the starter. He's pretty electric, did punch out a good amount, but the Dodgers were able to win that game. Then they faced Nick Lodolo the next day, put up some runs against him as well. I believe Tommy Edman took him deep. And then they won that game 5-4. And the only game they lost was the third game of that series. Nick Martinez started that game. The Dodgers won't see him on the mound as a starter in the series, maybe out of the bullpen. This was a game the Dodgers actually led, and then later in the game they ended up blowing it. I believe Emmett Sheehan came out of the bullpen and pitched really well, but just gave up one late inning triple, I think it was, to Spencer Steer. If you remember, actually, James Outman almost robbed a home run. So just a late inning collapse, which is scary that could happen, but they were a couple outs away from sweeping the Reds overall. Later in August, Hunter Green they faced in the first game of that series. They won that game 7-0, put up a couple runs off of Hunter Green. It was actually Andy Pages who hit 2 home runs off of him, and we'll get into him and how he's hit really well against Hunter Green. Then the next day they faced Nick Martinez again. They beat the Reds again 6-3, and then they faced Nick Lodolo on the final day, who's another guy they will probably face in the series, and they beat him, and they won 5-1. So they have faced Green and Lodolo, who they probably will face in the series. They have put up some runs against those guys, hit some homers. They have, like I said, good starting pitching. So right now, it is not official where like Dave Roberts has come out and said who officially will start, at least at the time of this recording. But there are tweets from reporters about what it looks like it's going to be. It's kind of funny. It was up in the air like who was going to start for a while. If you can kind of like read into the tea leaves and like figure out in advance who's going to start just based on how the Dodgers are lining up, in any team, how they're just lining up the rotation, guys who are throwing bullpens. The last 2 weeks, it was looking like Shohei Ohtani was going to get the game 1 start. And up until three or 4 days ago, that's what it looked like. It also was looking like Blake Snell was going to pitch game 2. So for a little bit, it was looking like Yamamoto wasn't going to start in the wild card series. The Dodgers are unlike any other team in the postseason right now, where they have, if you look at their rotation options, they could go with Ohtani, Blake Snell, Yamamoto, Glasnow. Obviously, they have Sheehan and then Kershaw. No other team has options like that. I mean, if you really think about it and look at other teams, the Blue Jays have the best record in the AL. Their rotation is made up of Kevin Gausman. They have guys like Scherzer, Eric Lauer. I know there's other guys I'm forgetting, Chris Bassett, but it's not like they have this plethora of just, hey, we could just pick a guy who's as good as these guys. Again, the Yankees, Max Fried, who's really good, and Carlos Rodon, who's really good, but a little bit of a drop-off after that. The team with the best record in baseball, the Milwaukee Brewers, they have Jacob Mizorowski, who's a young rookie. His ERA is over 4, though. And then they have Freddie Peralta. He's very good. He'll probably go game 1. But then after that, Brandon Woodruff got injured. So, they could go to Quinn Prestier, another good rookie that they have. So, again, it's not like nobody has this kind of riches like the Dodgers. Like, can we start Blake Snell? He's won 2 Cy Youngs in his career. Could we, pitch Yamamoto? He's going to get Cy Young votes this year. Could we pitch Shohei? He's got some of the best stuff in the game. Glasnow, same thing. Kershaw, we already know about him. Emmett Sheehan has been good. Like, nobody has those options. So whoever they do decide to go to, it's not really like the wrong decision. But based on how Yamamoto has pitched this year, it would be a little bit weird if he didn't get one of the first 2 picks to pitch, especially given that he has been rested. The Dodgers didn't have to use him over the weekend to clinch the division or something like that. So I don't want to say the Dodgers were getting we're trying to get cute or anything, because they could just be looking at the matchup and saying, hey, we like Shohei here, we like Yamamoto, blah, blah, blah. But to me, I think you should just pitch your best pitcher in the first 2 games, which Yamamoto has been all year. And obviously, in the nightmare situation, the Dodgers lose to the Reds. If Yamamoto doesn't pitch, then that is again, I don't think that would happen, but that would just be nightmare fuel. You lost the game where you didn't pitch your best pitcher. From what has been announced so far, it looks like it will be Blake Snell game 1 going up against Hunter Green. Hunter Green is official. Blake Snell is what it looks like it'll be from the Dodgers. Then Yamamoto in game 2. And then if there's a game 3, because of course it's best 2 out of 3, so we don't know. If there is a game 3, Shohei Ohtani. The other pitchers for the Reds have not been announced officially, but if you look at the last time they pitched, it looks like it'll line up that Lodolo should go game 2 against Yamamoto. And then Andrew Abbott, the only Reds pitcher who hasn't faced the Dodgers, would go game 3 because I believe he pitched over the weekend, and then Lodolo hasn't pitched since Thursday or Wednesday. So that's how it should line up. Game 1, Blake Snell versus Hunter Green. Game 2, Yoshinobu Yamamoto versus Nick Lodolo, the left-hander. And then Shohei Ohtani versus Andrew Abbott, another left-hander, if it goes 3. So that's how it's going to line up. Now, when it comes to the postseason roster, we already know, and I said this yesterday, Clayton Kershaw won't be on the roster. He pitched a full game on Sunday, so he wouldn't even really be ready to go. Because it's only a 3-game series, there's kind of no use for him. So Glasnow is going to be on the roster. Now, when it comes to a couple other guys, Will Smith. At the time of this recording, I don't know yet if he's going to be on the roster. If I had to guess, he's not going to be on it. I hope that he is. I hope that something feels better. Today when they probably practice, go through some BP and stuff like that at Dodger Stadium. Hopefully it feels better and he feels like he can be on there. If they do advance past the Reds, I do think he'll be on the NLDS roster against the Phillies. But we'll see. He hasn't played in a little bit, and there kind of has been no updates about him. I don't know if he'll be on there. It'll probably be Ben Rortvedt catching game 1. Maybe even Dalton Rushing because he's been good as of late. But the pitching staff has been so great with Ben Rortvedt. Now, when it comes to other fringe guys, Will Klein, another guy who looked really electric the last couple weeks, and they clearly were giving some run to him. He was optioned for Andrew Heaney over the weekend, so Andrew Heaney could kind of eat innings, and I guess they could just see what they have with him. I think he will be on the roster, him as in Will Klein, because he looked really good over the weekend, or over the last few weeks, and he has the potential to be really nasty because he throws super hard. I also think Sasaki's definitely going to make it. He had 2 chances to show what he could do, and he did perfect. I don't even think he walked anyone. No, he didn't walk anyone. He only gave up 1 hit. Struck out, I think, 4 guys. A lot of whiffs, looking nasty. I'm going to make some videos about him in later today or tomorrow. So the roster should look like Rortvedt and Rushing as the 2 catchers. That's, again, assuming Will Smith's not on there. Freddie Freeman, Miguel Rojas at second, Mookie at short. 2 little weird things about the roster are Muncy and Edman. They've kind of been a little banged up, but I imagine they'll be on there. And then in the outfield, Teoscar, Pages, Conforto probably makes it, I would guess. I mean, it would kind of make no sense for have him on the roster this long, and he's been starting games for the most part. And then probably Alex Call is one of the bench guys. I wanted to kind of write it down like a prediction, but it's going to change series to series if the Dodgers advance. So it looks like, it's going to be Snell, Yamamoto, Sheehan, no Kershaw, like I said. Obviously, Trinan, Vesia, Henriquez, Jack Dreyer. The roster looks pretty set. Won't see Kershaw, and probably won't see Will Smith. But I'll be pretty hyped if we do see Will Smith. That's a lot of talking, a lot of rambling. A little all over the place. Like I said, not a full breakdown today. Just giving you some info on the Reds, kind of some little things to look forward to. So when we get more into the individual matchups, so game 1, like I said, as of now, it's going to be Blake Snell versus Hunter Green. That is obviously scary because Hunter Green is very electric. Now again, the Dodgers have faced Hunter Green a good amount and have good numbers against him. So Hunter Green versus the Dodgers in his career, in 27 2/3 of innings pitched, he has a 4.55 career ERA. So the Dodgers have hit Hunter Green well. That's over the span of 2022 till now. Pages, like I said, Andy Pages, who hit 2 home runs off of this year, and then he hit a home run off of Hunter Green a year ago in 2024. He has 3 career home runs off of him. And then Muncy and Freddie Freeman also have a home run against Hunter Green. A couple things about Hunter Green. He has one of the best fastballs in the game in terms of velocity and then just in terms of like the numbers against it. We actually saw Hunter Green, like I said, a month ago. His average fastballs were around 99, and when he was pitching against the Dodgers in August, he was literally sitting like 100. So expect Hunter Green to not throw many fastballs under 99 in this start. Seriously, he's going to be sitting 99 to 101. He'll probably max out at like 102. And again, the numbers against his fastball. So he has a 199 batting average against his fastball. That is 33rd best in Major League Baseball. But to counter that, the Dodgers have the best OPS in baseball against four-seam fastball. And Hunter Green has allowed 7 home runs in his career against the Dodgers. So it's kind of like one of those situations of what will give. The Dodgers are the best team in the game against four-seamers. Hunter Green has one of the best four-seamers. So obviously that helps, the Dodgers that, yes, they're facing a good fastball, but they themselves hit fastballs well. So, we'll see. It's all about can they hit the fastball. And then Hunter Green also has a really good slider, and he'll mix in a splitter. But just seeing Hunter Green recently and multiple times throughout his career, very helpful for the Dodgers. You like that. They're going to face Snell in Game 1. So Blake Snell in his career versus the Reds, 15 innings pitched, he has a 1.80 ERA against the Reds. So he's pitched well against them in his career. And some other things I found out about the Reds, they are 27th in all of Major League Baseball in OPS versus curveballs. Okay, so they don't hit the curveball well. One of the last teams in baseball against curveballs. Blake Snell has an opponent batting average of 173 against his curveball. So one of his best pitches is the curveball. The Reds don't hit curveballs. That's a good matchup right there. Game 2 will be Yoshinobu Yamamoto versus Nick Lodolo. Nick Lodolo, the tall left-hander, pretty interesting pitcher. Doesn't get a ton of strikeouts like Hunter Green does, or a ton of swing and miss. But he does get a lot of chase because he has a very good changeup and a very good curveball. Batting average against his curveball is 195, and then the changeup is 201. His fastball and his sinker are a little bit more hittable. And another thing about Lodolo is he's one of the best pitchers in the game at not allowing walks. So you can't wait him out. You're going to have to be aggressive against him. That is why he obviously gets a lot of chase. But he does not walk hitters. Nick Lodolo, in his career against the Dodgers, a 5.40 ERA. That's over 10 innings. So both of those guys don't have great numbers against the Dodgers. Obviously, it's not the most, it's not the biggest sample size, but 10 innings is a decent amount. And then obviously Hunter Green, 27 innings, that is a good sample size. So the Dodgers have hit both of them pretty well. And Lodolo, they actually, like I said, they faced twice this year and hit him fairly well. Yamamoto has a 3.75 ERA in his career versus the Reds. That's over 12 innings. He faced them once this year and absolutely dominated them. And then he faced them once in 2024. Another thing I found out, the Reds are second to last in the entire sport against splitters. Obviously, Yamamoto, his splitter is one of the 10 best pitches in the game. So that's another great matchup right there. They don't hit curveballs well. That's good for Blake Snell. And they don't hit splitters well. That's great for Yamamoto. Yamamoto also throws a curveball as well. Green and Lodolo will be tough to hit for the Dodgers. They need to obviously bring some good plate discipline, but they really need to be able to hit some heaters, lay off. Lodolo's going to try to get you to chase, but he also does, not walk hitters. So two good guys that are going to be in the strike zone for the most part. Lodolo, like I said, does rely on a lot of chase, but he doesn't walk hitters. So, two good pitchers that if they're locked in, if they're on, it's going to be tough. Now, in a potential Game 3 scenario, if it is Shohei versus Andrew Abbott, which that looks like it'll be the case, Andrew Abbott has never faced the Dodgers. For some reason, when I was doing some research, it was saying that he might have faced Andrew Abbott. So if I'm wrong, I apologize. But from what I could find, he's never faced the Dodgers. Shohei, in his career, has a 2.89 ERA versus the Reds in 9 innings pitched, 9 1/3 innings pitched. So he's also pitched well against the Reds. This year against the Reds was actually one of his, not worst starts, but it was one of his shorter starts. If you remember, in July, he was cramping and came out of the game. It was super hot. He only pitched like 2 innings, I think, 2 or 3 innings. And the Reds did put up some runs against him, but Like I said, 2.89 ERA in his career versus the Reds. And then another thing about the Reds, they are 22nd in OPS in all Major League Baseball against sliders. That is one of Shohei's best pitch. He throws a sweeper and a slider. So, again, if you're looking into all the numbers I just told you, they don't hit well against sliders, curveballs, and splitters. For the most part, the Reds are not a great offensive team. If you dive into their lineup, they don't have the best of, offensive players. Obviously, Elly De La Cruz is the headliner of the team, electric player, shortstop, plays. His defense has been up and down in his career. Obviously, he has the best throwing arm in the game, pretty much, and he's really electric on the base path. But he really fell off in the second half. So if you look at their lineup, they have T.J. Friedl leading off, center fielder. He's a pretty good hitter, on base guy, makes contact, not a lot of pop. Noelvi Marte, who was a top prospect of theirs, who used to play third base, and actually in the middle of the year they moved him to right field. Another kind of electric player, but again he's new to the outfield, but he's pretty fast. He's in the 2 spot. He's hit pretty well for them this year. Gavin Lux, old friend, he's played second base and left field for them. So depending on who's on the mound, he'll probably be in left field. And then Miguel Andujar, they traded for him from the Athletics. He's actually been very good for the Reds. Elly De La Cruz hitting 5th, playing shortstop. Spencer Steer, who's been a solid hitter for them in the past and is one of their best home run hitters, but still is kind of a below league average hitter. Tyler Stevenson, another guy who's been injured a lot in his career, but normally when he's out there is a good hitter. Cabrian Hayes, probably the best defensive third baseman in the game, but he probably is also the worst hitter in the game. If you look at OPS for qualified hitters, he is at the very bottom. And then Matt McLean, high draft pick, UCLA guy, I believe, had a really big time down year. A couple guys on their bench, Jose Trevino, really good defensive catcher. Mostly that's just the framing, not a good thrower. Sal Stewart, Florida boy from Miami, top prospect. Maybe he'll be in the lineup against Blake Snell or something like that, but just a young guy who has a lot of pop. And then they have a couple other guys like Will Benson, big-time strikeout guy, but some good pop. Austin Hayes probably will be in there game 1 against Blake Snell. He'll probably be DHing or something like that. And that's how they roll it out in the lineup. So, like I said, some of their offensive numbers, Miguel Andujar has only played 34 games for them. He's been very, very good, though. He has a weighted runs created plus of 159. He has a on-base percentage of 400 while slugging 554. So he's been really, really good for them. But of their regular players who have been out there every day, T.J. Friedl has a 109 weighted runs created plus, so he's just above league average. Like I said, 364 on base is pretty good, but a 378 slug, 14 home runs, 11% walk rate. So like I said, good on base numbers. Elly De La Cruz, though, again, the superstar player, a 108 weighted runs created plus. He was actually looking like this was, not breakout year, but he's one of those popular players, electric, stylish on the field, all that kind of stuff. Hadn't really put it together for a full season yet. In the first half, it looked like he was on his way there, but then in the second half, the numbers tanked. I think he only hit 3 home runs in the second half. Again, 108 rated runs created plus, 100 is league average, so he was only just 8 points above league average. Austin Hayes, in 103 games played, 105 weighted runs created plus. Again, he's normally good against lefties. Gavin Lux, old friend, 102 weighted runs created plus. That's basically what Gavin Lux has been throughout his entire career. Just a league average hitter who has good walk numbers and good plate discipline, but he hit 5 home runs during the regular season, so he has 0 power, a 374 slugging percentage. And then again, Noelvi Marte, 101 weighted runs created plus. He must have fallen off as of late because I believe when he came into Dodger Stadium a month ago, he actually had pretty solid numbers. Only played 90 games this year. I think he came off a steroid suspension, but still an electric player. Other than that, Tyler Stevenson, Spencer Steer, who had hit the most home runs for them, or second most, under league average. Will Benson, he strikes out a ton. And then, like I said, Cabrian Hayes, 82 weighted runs created plus. That's one of the worst in the league. Matt McLean, 77. So the good thing I can tell you about the Reds is that the lineup doesn't necessarily scare you. Obviously, anything can happen. They could come out and score a bunch of runs, and it could be like the Diamondbacks a couple of years ago when they blitzkrieged the Dodgers. The lineup doesn't scare you too much. All right, it's the pitching. Like I said, when you look at their numbers on the mound, obviously those 3 guys I just mentioned, ERA of 2.76, They have some solid guys in the bullpen. Graham Ashcraft, he's a guy who throws a lot of cutters. Connor Phillips. Emilio Pagan, who's actually been their closer this year. He's a guy who's like had a resurgent year. He's bounced around Padres, Twins, Rays. His ERA is 2.88. So they have some solid guys in the bullpen, especially some guys who throw hard. Like I mentioned earlier, Chase Burns, he has his ERA is 4.57, but he has a lot of strikeouts, and he throws super hard. They have another guy, Zach Maxwell, another guy who throws super hard. If you look at their pen, a ton of guys that throw really hard. So even when you get guys like Green out of the game at some point, there's still going to be some guys coming into the game who throw super hard. So they do have a pretty solid pen. That is all the info I have for you guys. I think the Dodgers match up well with them because the Dodgers have some very good starting pitching. The Reds don't have the scariest offense, but the Reds also have pretty good starting pitching. The Dodgers' offense is looking good right now, and they have a good offense, but at times it can kind of get a little cold. So the key to this series, I believe, it will be what can the Dodgers do against the Reds starting rotation? Because I think that the rotation for the Dodgers is going to be good. I think that they'll be able to hit some of the guys in their bullpen. The key is going to be what can the Dodgers do against the Reds starting rotation? And then obviously another big key is the Dodgers bullpen. That's going to kind of be the key to the Dodgers the entire postseason. When you get down to postseason time, throw all these numbers at you, all these probabilities, statistics, analytics. At the end of the day, when you get to the postseason, it is all based on winning one game at a time. Seriously, I mean, there's so many years in the past where the Dodgers are getting ready to play a big game, and I'm trying to think, like, what do they need to do? Lineup, approach, whoever's on the mound, blah, blah, blah. What it really comes down to is you got to find a way to win a game. Because in the postseason, it's obvious. It goes without saying. If the bullpen is not good, you're not going to win. If the rotation's not good, you're not going to win. If you don't hit, especially, you're not going to win. So that's very obvious. Again, but the two little keys I'll say is the Dodgers need to put up runs and have a good approach against the Reds rotation, and then the bullpen has to find itself. That's going to be the biggest key the entire rest of the way if the Dodgers are able to win another World Series. So that's obvious. At this point, like I said, man, it's about playing well, and it's just about winning one game at a time. Like having a good approach against Hunter Green, putting up a couple runs, Blake Snell giving you a solid outing, whoever you turn it over in the pen, limits damage and all that, and it's just steering the ship to a win one game at a time. That's really all I can tell you guys. So I hope you guys learned a lot about the Reds. Like I said, close it out. Really good starting rotation, really fun young team, but they don't necessarily have the scariest lineup. And I also thought that the Reds were a good base running team, but they don't really have a lot of guys who steal bases outside of Elly De La Cruz. And they're just a okay defensive team. Like I said, Cruz is kind of up and down defensively at short, but Brian Hayes is elite. Gavin Lux plays an average second base, but when he plays the outfield, he's obviously a second baseman playing left field. Friedel is pretty good in center, but obviously Marte in right, he's new to that position. The Reds are a solid team. You can't take them lightly. You got to go out there. You got to pitch the ball. You got to hit the ball, and you got to figure out how to win a game. So that's all I have for you guys. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see what happens. It's postseason time, so the next time I get on here, it will either be to recap the Dodgers beating the Reds, heading to Philadelphia, and then eventually previewing that series, or obviously what happens if some things go bad. So thank you guys for listening. You can get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on social media at Talking Blue Pod. Follow myself at Talking Blue Nick on X. Please follow me, guys, if you love the Dodgers. I'm the perfect person to follow you because it's all I tweet about, and I post a bunch of stuff about them. Reddit, competitive-week 8715. I will be back on here to recap this series. Hopefully, of course, it is a Dodgers winning series. I think that will be the case. I'm not really going to give any predictions in the postseason, but I think the Dodgers will beat the Reds. Yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you guys in a few days.